Hello, everyone, and welcome for the soft wide coverage of the Daniel Negreanu versus Doug Polk Heads Up Challenge. The players have played 18,924 hands coming into today. We're coming off a huge Daniel Negreanu victory. Doug Polk's lead is now 613,000, so he's peak incinerated. And I am alone for about an hour. At least that's what I've been told. Berkey could just not show up, and that's perfectly fine with me. But for now, as scheduled, we will be playing, or at least covering this for 2 hours minimum, and then we'll see what happens. Generally, the players have played significantly longer than the 2 hour minimum, but we'll see. It is not obligatory. Doug starts with a limp. This is probably a misclick. Although he also limped the other table as well. This is very strange. I'm not sure if this is on purpose. This could have easily been just a misclick on both tables. I don't see him incorporating the strategy, although I'm not sure. I guess we'll keep an eye on it. King 8-3 goes check check, turn 7. Fair amount of available bluffs for both players. River 6. Sorry guys, I'm a little bit in shock that Doug has limped both tables right now. So he limped with pocket deuces on table 1. And 10 high is good on table 2. Is this Doug Polk? What happened? What's happening? Ben asks, as in, what is the breaking point? As in, another limp. What is going on? Okay. This is clearly a strategic thing. Doug's not gonna do that twice. Why is he doing this? Could it be related to his lead? He doesn't necessarily... Could it be related to his lead? He just doesn't want to play massive pots, lose the lead with this many hands left. Just keep the pot small. Not sure. I mean, like I've mentioned before, there are side bets going on, right? So we're not privy to what those are, but maybe Doug has, I don't know, maybe Doug wants to start a limping game, keep the pot small, higher probability he wins out, or maybe he has just added it to his game overall. Maybe it's just something that he wants to use, period. Not in accordance to the bet, but rather just in accordance to his overall game. I guess we'll have to see. I'm not really sure or attuned to what a limping heads up strategy looks like. Might have to ask my friends. I'm not sure what's going on. This is some new shit. So people want it. They Sean in the chat says he's up 600k, so he doesn't need side bets to justify not playing big pots in the final 6k hands to win the challenge. He could also win each session limping as well. He definitely can. Listen, I don't think that what he's doing is wrong at all. Obviously, as a viewer, we would love to see the big pots and be entertained and all these things, but there's also some of it where there's some appreciation for Doug as a tactician. He's a tactician. That's what he is. He's gonna maneuver and win this challenge or at least attempt to win this challenge the best he can. And this is one of the things he's gonna throw at Daniel. Now it's up to Daniel to figure it out. Oh, as you see at the bottom right of our screen, we've added a new feature for our friend Bill Perkins specifically. It is a ticker. It will give you the exact number of hands we are on at the current moment. After the limp, Daniel starts with a min bet on ace 10 deuce 2 diamonds. Not sure if how much he wants to do that. Like, he doesn't have, so the problem I see with the min bet on the right table, and I could be completely off base here, so I'm like humbly saying this, is that he's void of suited hands and he's also void of ace x's. Like, in terms of like the proportion of those two ranges, right? Like, the proportion of suited hands from Doug versus Daniel definitely has to be in the favor of Doug, because Daniel's going to be raising suited hands at some frequency, right? Also, ace x's are going to be in the favor of Doug, because Doug is limping ace 6 suited, and Daniel's not going to be checking hands like ace 6 suited. So both the ace x's and the suited hands are both in the favor of Doug, which means that Daniel really shouldn't be min betting a board like ace 10 deuce monotone. So I was a little bit surprised to see that from Daniel. And now, of course, I could be like, I haven't studied the spot like as in depth as potentially these two players have or will have or will be. So I'm just kind of talking based on like what I see, just raw, right? Match is close. Not surprising with the amount of like small pots we're gonna see. It's unlikely we see too many like massive swings today. 3 bets on table 1. Daniel did just 3 bet also on table 2. Ace Queen 8. Generally a very dynamic board for both players. A lot of available equity. Hands like King Jack, King 10, Queen 10, Jack 10, 10 9, all available. Daniel starts with a quick check. Doug starts with a half pot. This is interesting too. I feel like he's been mostly going smaller after the 3-better checks, but he goes with the half pot that time. Some new stuff, like slightly like little tweaks I think I'm seeing. New to Heads Up, the button should have the widest range, right? Well, it depends. Nice hand from Daniel, excuse me. And this spot is a little bit different. Remember that the big blind has 100% of his hands, and the button does not, right? So the button is choosing to put money in the pot to enter the pot, so they generally won't have a hand like 7 deuce offsuit. But the big blind has 7 deuce offsuit because they have every single hand in the deck. They were just given 2 blind cards. 4 bet, table number 2 from Doug. All of it. Wow, pocket 3s. Oh, that's a 3. Well, that's gonna do it. 1. Hello, how you doing? How you doing? Little 3 ball. Hello. Well, that's nice. Polly P says, and heads up, the main strategy is for the button to almost always raise. So if it's a default, basically, shouldn't the other player have more of the premium hands? No, because remember, the person in the big blind, if they have premium hands, they're going to raise themselves. So, and also, Doug's not going to be only limping the bad hands. He's going to limp some good hands as well. You saw him limp 3-bet. He could have just limped 3-bet something good. You know, like, Doug's not going to be so face up that he's going to limp trash and raise good hands. He's going to be mixing those situations fairly well. So, because the person that put the chips in the pot first decided to put chips in the pot, that person's range, if the action goes limp check, the person that limped has the stronger range because they chose to put money in the pot, and they could still have the good hands. The person that has 100% of the deck and then chose to check now has deleted the top portion of the deck from their range because they chose to just check rather than raise out of the big blind, right? So the person that chose to limp has the stronger range. There is a big pot brewing on table number 2.
Oh, hello.
Seems like we'll need a replay of this as this gets interesting. Backdoor flush does fill. Boats are available. 8s, 6s, 6-4. Flush. 55,000. Going up, my man Dan in the ground. How you doing? How you feeling? Canada, baby. Hello.
Did the river go check back?
Yeah.
I would be interested to see if they work on an alternative strategy that has varying raise sizes out of the big blind, right? Because I don't think just doing an average of 4x is really all that incentivized.
What do you think?
I feel like we want to be raising. So like if we're 4xing, I think the range has to be relatively tight, maybe as strict as just what our 3-bet range is to begin with. And I could be off on that. Obviously, I haven't studied these spots, but I bet it's pretty close, right? If we want to say start, especially if we want to steer into volatility and we want to start opening a few more pots, it seems like splitting that range between a big bet and a small bet, maybe a 5x and a 2.5x, and then adding hands to the 2.5x range would be a pretty good counter strategy to somebody who's playing 100% of buttons, right? If we can get to the point where like we're opening maybe 35, 40% of hands out of the small, and we found a profitable way to do so, or at least a way to do so that isn't costing us much, right? Because obviously Daniel's at a point where he's willing to lose a little bit on early streets to gain a lot on river. We're in the exploits, baby. This is the time. This is the time to see the exploitative player shine and just like outthink somebody on their feet, right? Like it's just constant on your feet counter strategies. Like, oh, okay, yo, he's limping. Let me try to see how I can duck and move kind of through this portion of the tree.
I don't know. This is confusing stuff, man. It's just like what's happening right now.
No, sorry, pot size bet. Pot size bet. Hey, it's $2.50 over the pot.
Wow, it's called through the turn.
Oh shit. 4-5 completes on table 2. Daniel wins the pot on table 1. King Queen misses.
4-5
9 misses.
Yeah, 4-5 is only in the hands of Doug.
Doug bet twice, yeah?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, you're right. He's the only one with 4-5. I think Daniel just like wants to bluff catch all of his Jack X here. 10x becomes very tough. 10x you want like King 10, Ace 10, I think. It's difficult because like so many of the bluffs are going to be coming from. Let's go, he had it. Oh no,
he was up against King Jack.
Against it though. Okay, I mean that's good. He called with the right candidate.
It might be over. This session might be over. I don't know.
Yeah, I wouldn't be shocked. That's one of those swings we see, you know.
Yeah, I see the dots. It's over.
Wow. Yeah, we got a lot to tune in for. Can Daniel make a run at this? Can he make it a game? Given the low volatility style that Doug is trying to introduce. Something that I said last stream that I kind of clarified on my stream yesterday while playing the tournament that I want to also clarify again here today is that I said Doug was giving up win rate by implementing a limping strategy. That's not true necessarily. As he kind of tweeted, adding a limping strategy actually increases EV, not decreases. And both are true and false. So in theory, having a more complex preflop strategy will increase your EV. Obviously, the more strategic options that you can implement in an optimal way, the more complicated the response to your opponent's counter strategy has to be, thus creating a propensity for mistakes. However, if by complicating your strategy, you allow yourself to fall victim to your opponent's mistakes. So for instance, if Doug isn't calibrated in Daniel's response that is mistake laden, then suddenly it will impact his EV in a negative way, right? So if Doug isn't balancing his ranges, which he is, I'm pretty certain he's just rolling and he has well-defined pre-flop charts to allow him to do so. He'll be giving up a little bit there. But where it really matters is in the post-flop game tree. Now at much greater SPRs, if either player is unstudied in their proper strategies, then obviously like EV becomes a free-for-all. So when they play a limp pot and they go to the flop at an SPR of 50, the post-flop strategy is going to look very, very different than it would if it were a single raise pot where they arrive at the flop with an SPR of like 20. More importantly, bet sizes become a lot more hindered, right? Because there's only going to be 2 big blinds in the pot. Now the minimum bet size we can choose is 50%. And that's going to complicate things for one of the 2 players. Now, of course, we're going to assume that it's going to complicate things for Daniel, not Doug. But it's just very possible that Daniel falls into pretty natural, good counters versus a limp, as opposed to versus a more aggressive strategy. So I don't think that like either of those statements can just be said in general and be true. I think that it's much more specific to the 2 players, their knowledge of the game, their strategies, things of that nature. I think both of them kind of oversimplified. Like Daniel saying that he can't lose now that Doug is limping is crazy. He still just has to play a bunch of 50 big blind, or sorry, he has to play a bunch of 50 SPR spots post. He also has to play a bunch of inflated pots out of position when he chooses to be the opener, in order to counter this strategy. I don't think it really impacts all that much who the day in, day out winner is. Matter of fact, I don't think it impacts it really at all. The only thing I think it impacts is the floor and the ceiling of wins and losses per day. I think we're far less likely to see a 10 buy-in swing whenever one player is implementing a less volatile strategy. Yo, I can't do this, man. I can't do this. He's going to fucking use 15 seconds before every single decision. Shout out to Daniel. I got a ton of respect for this. I love that you're playing the game right now. I hate it. But I love it just as much as I love Doug limping, right? Like, we're getting to endgame strat right now, and this is a chess match. And I love that they've gotten this deep into the minutia that it's worth exhausting your time bank before every single decision. But as a commentator, I can't do this. There's no way I can do this for 2 hours. They're going to play 50 total hands. Completely pathetic showing from Real Kid Poker today. Tanking 20 seconds to open, 20 seconds to check flop. Tanking every single decision in an effort to slow the game down to nothing. Total piece of shit move. What are you talking about, man? What are you talking about? Where does this fucking guy get off, man? He just like says inflammatory things. He's literally the guy who interviewed Shamath today on CNBC. The guy who's upset from the institutional side of the market because suddenly the loose, free, outside money found a way to manipulate the market in their favor. And he's just crying, no, this is bullshit. This is not allowed. The institution is supposed to profit. Like, that's Doug in this instance. He's throwing a hissy fit because Daniel's doing something well within the rules. Like, what are you talking about, man? You changed your strategy halfway through. The man's a dog to begin with. You're going to fault him for doing things that allow him to get in more study time? This is madness. You are clearly in a position where you're willing to do absolutely anything within the constructs of the rules to book a win because your side action is so great. Doug's sitting out once again. Probably calling Daniel to give him an earful. Check, check, flop, jack, jack 9, turn 10. Doug bets, Daniel calls. Doug must bluff this river. No, check, check? Bro, check, check? What? Full house, baby. Okay, I don't like that, obviously. I think we're losing a lot of value there. Doug was betting the king high on the turn for protection, not for bluff. And he's certainly going to have hands that show down. Also, you're going to have hands that need to bluff there. You're going to have small pairs that get counterfeit. You're going to have some 9x that got counterfeit. You're going to have a lot of 9x that got counterfeit. And he's just going to have other check calls, right? He's going to have king queen once in a while. He's going to have other king highs, obviously, as their open or their gut shots on the turn. He's going to have some queen highs that may feel like they need to make a crying call, and certainly he's going to have like bad ace highs, like ace 5 off and shit like that. So I definitely think Daniel can get called by worse there when he has a 10. I don't know if that was a misclick or if it was a means of signaling to Doug that he's playing poorly, right? Like maybe Daniel just doesn't see there being a ton of EV. What is going on? What is going on right now? We're 40 minutes into the challenge. Both players are now sitting up. Like, this isn't outside the scope of the spirit of the bet. Maybe it is for Doug. Maybe his idea is play 25,000 hands as fast as possible, realize my win rate, and ride off into retirement. But from Daniel, he's the underdog. It's the exact opposite. It's play 25,000 hands as methodically and well thought out as humanly possible, doing everything within my power to close a skill gap that no one thinks I can do over a short period of time. Why on earth would he be criticized for that? Why aren't we applauding this? Gelfond is a guest today on Ingram's podcast. He's currently not there because he's on the phone mediating this between the two competitors right now. Phil's got a tough job, a very, very, very tough job. And I don't trust anybody to be fair more so than Phil. But I got to tell you, if in some way, shape, or form this is ruled against Daniel, I would be absolutely beside myself. Like, I can't think of a justified reason for any objective person to think what Daniel is doing is somehow not okay. It's boring. It's annoying. It is tilting, but it's fine. It's just absolutely fine. Jim Breezy says, question, why is half potting so bad? It's not that half potting's bad. There are definitely spots to half pot. Just only having a half pot size is very bad because it restricts you now to the hands that you're able or freed up to bet that way. Essentially, whatever size you choose, you're laying a price to your opponent, and you need to have enough EV to justify that size. So when you bet half pot, you can't bet a lot of your lower EV hands as you could if you were betting, say, third pot. And to the other side of that spectrum, when you bet half pot, now you get less value than you would for some of your strongest hands. So half pot has just become a very lazy average, where it's like if proper betting splits is maybe having a 33% size and a 66% size, a lot of people will just bet 40 or 50% with a comparable range averaged out over the two. Essentially, you're just giving up a lot of EV. Maybe not a lot, but you're giving up some EV. The one and only gas trader himself, Bill Perkins, joining the stream. What's going on with your boy, man?
We are, I don't know. I mean, Doug's thrown on some new twists, and Daniel has to go to school again, right? Like, he wasn't really prepared for this limp business, and I think it's smart by Doug to go ahead and implement that strategy. One, it's going to confuse Daniel, right? Like, he's got to go to school. He hasn't really been prepared for responses to a limp strategy pre-flop. Never mind further down the game tree, right?
Right.
Flop, turn, river, and it's going to reduce his variance, right? Like, Doug doesn't need to be having any more $300,000 losses, right?
Right.
$390,000 losses. Like, that's not going to fare well when you're laying odds on side bets, right? So, Daniel's going to take his time.
So this is strategy, right? Like, this isn't just Daniel wants to get his goat and see Doug kind of get pissed off, call Gelfond and kind of bemoan it a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, it's strategic, right? Like, he can't be whizzing through these scenarios having just learned it, for a couple hours.
Right.
and battling against like arguably, you know, top 10, top 5 heads up, no limit poker player, right? Like, so that's part of it. And if Doug gets tilted off of that, well, that's just bonus, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I'm getting some sick, twisted pleasure out of this, to be quite honest. Because, you know, it's like, I think Doug was very smart to implement a limp. I think it's what we were most critical of with Vinny Vidi whenever he lost the challenge to Gelfond after being up $1 million. It was just like he never wavered. He was so convinced that he was making X amount of big blinds per 100 that he never adjusted his strategy, and Phil proved otherwise. Phil proved that it was just negative variance, and that, you know, given a slightly more volatile strategy, he could fight his way back in. So Doug, having enough money on the line on the side, making that strategic adjustment and saying like, look, I'm trying to ensure that I finish this challenge up plus $1 because I have way more money out on the streets in side bets and I'm laying a huge price. That makes perfect sense to me. How the fuck does that translate into now my opponent made a counter strategy and I am livid?
Yeah, I don't get it. I don't know if it's part theater, you know, kind of like, you know, the flop on the soccer field,
Yeah.
right? Like he pushed me, that type of thing going to rage to kind of maybe goad Daniel into playing faster. I mean, I think obviously if I was in Doug's shoes, I would want Daniel to play more tables and faster.
Yeah, of course,
right?
Of course, 100%.
And get this done. I don't want Daniel playing 100 hands and then going into lab and learning, you know, what are the correct responses here.
Yeah.
Right.
And I think, like, you know, I don't know what took place in the Gelfond mediation, and maybe you have something you can share there. I'm not really sure. It seems like the consensus was that Daniel was going to play faster on the button, but still be able to take his time on all other decisions, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, we almost wagered on it amongst ourselves, or guys who are sweating it, that like there could be no decision except for there's nothing we can do. But
yeah.
Clearly, Galfond's was like, hey, on the button, it makes sense for you to act a little bit quicker, right? Not use the whole timer. And I can respect that because Daniel's not implementing the limp strategy, and you know,
right.
There's no need to unnecessarily slow down the game in that scenario. So that's a scenario, that's a decision we didn't really think through, and I would have lost money on that.
I'm with you. I'm with you. I didn't think that there's any way that it could have been more than a 10-second conversation with Phil just rolling his eyes saying like, Doug, there's nothing against him utilizing his time back however he sees fit.
Right, but that button scenario is your first act. I mean, it's like, yeah, come on.
If you have, if you only have one strategic option, then yes. I understand where they're coming from there. Doug fires again. Daniel calls. Daniel's gonna have a lot of king, queen, jack. He'll have all the jack 10, obviously. He'll have all the ace jack. I think we could see some big bets coming through here from Daniel. Oh.
Whoa.
Oh, so it was a 3-bet check raise. That's a little bit different.
Whoa.
So Daniel just has a 10 there, I would imagine. Very likely a good 10, like queen 10, king 10.
You got a lot of sticky for that thing. I mean, Doug doesn't have that many bluffs in that scenario, but Daniel got pretty sticky there.
Doug's turn bet is pretty interesting. Super thin. He blocks king queen, which is one of the hands he's trying to charge. The jack comes, which is obviously a pretty big negative. And he starts folding out hands that Daniel might consider bluffing with. Because I think he bet pretty big on the turn. I think he bet like 66%. So, you know, he gets max from a 10, obviously. But I would be curious what that turn strategy is supposed to look like with kings. I imagine it's a pretty low frequency bet.
Yeah. You're the expert, not me. I don't understand the call.
Yeah, you got the dream machine over there, man. Let's dial it up. I think Doug has officially abandoned the limping strategy. Therefore, Daniel has officially abandoned the tanking strategy. So we should be in for a more standard match the rest of the way through. Daniel, I assume, is going to be playing a little bit higher variance. Doug probably just going to play a standard game now that he has a 700K lead. It's not that he has it locked up at this point, but, you know, notwithstanding a 10 buy-in swing in 1 or 2 sessions, he really doesn't have a ton to worry about. Now, if Daniel can rip something off like another 400K day, that's going to change things. We might see the limp get implemented again, and we might see a tank as a result. Big pot here on the right. Ace, ace, 6, 7 in what I'm guessing was a 3-bet c-bet spot. So Daniel either c-bet flop or he check called third pot. Either way, a third pot bet was made. On the turn, Doug bets 3/4 pot. Okay. Daniel definitely check called the flop. 100%. Check call flop, check call turn. Gets 3 outed on the river. And punts his laptop across the room. It's going to swing things back in Doug's favor. He's going to be winning about 30, 35,000 now. After Daniel was up a quick 25. We're going to see some swings, guys. I promise you that. We are going to see some swings. Wow, we're 126 hands in already? That's crazy. We've only been playing 20 minutes. Fours, hold. Hold the baby. Diamond. Okay. Daniel rolled high. Oh, man. It's so funny whenever Daniel plays these all-in pots with, like, small pairs versus overcards. It's even funnier when Doug doesn't win them. But the post-game interview, I mean, it's just like, those are low-frequency plays. Daniel's probably making them at too high of a frequency for sure, because I've seen more small pairs versus ace-queen all-in pre than I have ace-queen versus ace-king all-in pre. So I would wager that he's maybe doing it a little bit too much. But at this point in the match, doing things like that too much isn't hurting you, I don't think, all that much. Like, I would imagine that the EV loss of getting it in there every time isn't more than like a few percent of your stack, but it ramps up variance and volatility and gives you the opportunity to fight your way back into this thing. Anyway, the whole thing I'm getting at is, like, whenever he got in with the 3s versus the ace king last session or 2 sessions ago, the one they won big, or no, it was the one where Doug started limping. Man, we really do need to name these like Friends episodes. The one where Doug began limping. I like that. The post-game interview was just like, oh yeah, we played one big pot. I had ace king and he got in with 3s. Fucking terrible. And that was it. And I actually resonate with that so much. Like, I'm super guilty of it. And it takes somebody around me to show me that, like, sometimes low frequency plays are just fine. There have been a lot of spots that I've pointed out to Landon where I'm just like, this has to be terrible, right? And he'll kind of look at it and be like, it's whatever. And vice versa. There have been a lot of spots where Landon's just like, this is fucking awful. And I'm just like, is it though? Is it? Like, yeah, you might not have that particular player strategy. Oh, get there. God damn it. 4s versus 7s on 5-3 deuce. Daniel can't find the 10 outer. Brutal. Swap stacks right back. Man, how does he miss? Didn't see the action. Looks like a 4-bet c-bet and then a check back. If I had to guess, if that's the case, Daniel should be calling with his queen X for sure. He'll be calling with 10x is tough because it's mostly going to be 10x of clubs. I think 10x of spades is obviously a pretty good call. Yeah, you got to call that. I mean, I know what he's thinking. Like, it's shitty to have spades in that particular scenario. So you kind of feel like you're running into it a little bit more, especially when Doug's able to value bet like all of his queen X, any kings or aces that he may have, whatever. But I just think, like, top pair is too strong not to bluff catch there. I don't think we're parsing through our candidates based on if we block the back door or not. 7-7-4-2 hearts. Small bet spot for Daniel. We'll see like 5,500 here a lot. He could mix in checks. Though I don't think at this stage in the match he's very incentivized to shuck variance in any sort of way, shape, or form. If he's going to get check raised, he's just not going to give a shit. Doug chooses a call. 10 of diamonds is tough. We went over this last time, but a lot of Doug's range is going to contain backdoor diamond draws, so like high cards with diamonds, hands like 8-9 of diamonds will be in here. He'll also have 10x of hearts. You would just much rather see a Badoogie 10 on the turn. Daniel goes for third pot. This is kind of tough, man. Doug can just rip a lot of fucking hands. But he does choose not to. River 10. Doug's only 10x now. I mean, this is actually a pretty good river for Daniel, I think. Doug's only 10x is 10x of hearts. Wow. I mean, Doug's never folding that hand. Kind of a tough line there with whatever Daniel had that was able to give up. I assume that that's like some king high type shit. King high diamonds, perhaps. I think that I'm less confident in that turn size. I feel like we probably, I don't know, man. On a paired board, I feel like we are probably mostly larger. Sometimes check, or I should say mostly check. And then when we bet, it's likely to be larger. Not saying that that size is never utilized. I'm sure that it is at some frequency. I just feel like it's probably not the dominant strategy on that particular texture. Especially given the availability for Doug to just rip. Like, obviously he's not going to rip his hand, but if he has a hand like 8-9 of diamonds, if he has a hand like 8-9 of spades, if he has a hand, actually, I don't know how much of this he would have. Well, he could do it with like 5-6 any suit, right? 5-6 of clubs just blocks all 6-7 and 7-5 of clubs, right? Range card for Daniel on the turn. Doug elects to check. Daniel should probably be betting this with close to range. He does check back, insinuating showdown value. Should be a lot of like 5x, 7x type hands. Why, Queen 3 of clubs. That's one I feel like he probably could put a little bit of money in with. That's a good hand to protect his other bets with, right? Like when he's betting third pot on the turn. Queen 3 of clubs is pretty good, especially when you don't go for the thin river value. A little disappointed to see him check that down as well, I think. I think he can get called by worse for sure. Doug's going to be protected in his checking range. He's obviously not going to bet like a middle pair type hand. I think Daniel like doesn't want to get check raised by a hand that possesses a 9 in it when 9-10 completes on the river, but that's where you make up that win rate, baby. You got to get thin to win. You just have to. I mean, if there's a story to be told about this match, it could very well, you know, post the first, whatever the learning curve experience was, let's call it the first 7,000 hands. Once you move past that, if there's a story to be told about what really differentiates these two, it's Doug's ability to get thin. He's just pretty calibrated in those arenas, and I think that there's still a little bit of hesitancy on Daniel's side because of the fear equity Doug poses, right? Like when you just know that you can be check raised at all times and you're holding a vulnerable hand, it makes you a little bit gun shy. Big 4-bet from Mr. Polk here. 250 blinds effective. Call by Daniel. Really shitty board for Daniel. Oh man, Daniel, have sevens one fucking time. You could have sevens or ace 7. That's pretty much it. He could have ace deuce. Those hands are all good. Third pot here from Doug. Pure call or fold spot from Daniel. I don't think we're doing any raising here. Though at depth, I think there's probably a lot of room to get more creative on these types of textures. I just don't know how studied he is in that spot. And if he's not, then he's just going to mostly have ace deuce, ace 7 and sets when he raises, which is pretty bad because that will be Doug's default line of thinking. Check here on the turn 5 of clubs. Still at 2.5 SPR. Doug goes for it. 66% and wins. Oh, just one time I have fucking sevens. Tejas says, do you know what happened with the Antonio Phil Hellmuth heads up duel? Are they on break? No. Phil beat him 3 times, which allows him to exit the duel. and end Antonio's ability to play. Put an end to it. And now either a check call or a c-bet from Daniel. Daniel does call through turn. This is a very good river for his calling range. He'll have some slow played 8-9. He'll have plenty of 10x as played. He'll have 9s and 8s. He will have clubs for certain. And he will have hands like 7-8, 7-9 that can bluff catch here. Although he's only going to have the non-club variety of 7-8 and 7-9, so that's going to make it a little tougher. He'd probably rather have like 9s with the 9 of clubs, 8s with the 8 of clubs, something like that to call. Ay, ay, ay. Doug just has it. Doug just fucking has it. Brutal. Can Phil come back into the door once you have exited? You can't join back. I think that you have to accept all challengers, and once you choose not to after your 3-win streak or whatever, it just ends. I think that's true. I don't know though for sure. 3-bet here by Doug. Oh, big pot on table 1. Backdoor diamonds does come through. The 4 pairs. We're gonna need a replay on this one. Didn't get to see how we got here. Should be a 4-bet pot, I would guess, but since Doug has the betting lead, I guess not. Woo! Hello! Hello! Okay. Let's see how my man did him dirty there. Oh, I hate when the next pot goes raise fold quickly because we missed the replay. Almost certainly. Imagine if Doug finally just like sat out first. Like he can't take it. All right, here we go. 3-bet by Doug, call by Daniel. It's going to be a small bet on the Jack 4 deuce. Oh, Doug goes half pot. Okay, and then almost full pot. Yeah, man. I don't know about that flop peel at half. I feel like Daniel's hand may raise more than call. That's just my instinct. Again, I haven't examined a lot of these spots. But yeah, my gut says that that is kind of an optimistic flop peel. With the old Queen 8 of diamonds on Jack 7-4 rainbow. I think it was Jack 7-4. It might have been Jack 4 deuce, actually. I think it was Jack 4 deuce. Turn 7, river 4. Yes, that's absolutely true. Table 2, giddy up. Pot size bet on the turn. So again, this is very likely to be a 3-bet pot, C-bet for third call. Turn full pot. River 8 now. Okay, a little bit awkward SPR. I don't think Daniel's going to want to be doing too much shoving. He goes full pot with the 8-4 and gets cooled off by the ace-8. Doug snapped. I guess he can't really jam and ever expect to get called by worse. Makes sense. I think ace-10 is probably the bottom of range for his shoves versus pot. Pretty unlucky spot there for D-Negs. Oh, he snaps, sits out. That's the dots, baby. That's going to do it. D-Negs goes from a 25K winner to potentially a 30 or 40K loser. We'll see how this hand shakes out. He's going to have a lot of calls on this board, but he doesn't. He just wants to be done. I can respect it. That is going to wrap it